There's this guy on Twitter named Michael Ripp, Michael.
Yeah.
Rippe.
Oh, the Ripper?
Hey, is that what they call him?
Yes.
Riper?
That's what
There's this guy on Twitter named Michael Ripp, Michael.
Yeah.
Rippe.
Oh, the Ripper?
Hey, is that what they call him?
Yes.
Riper?
That's what I believe.
He's some chief
Ripper.
something officer for some Bitcoin poker thing, but super analytics guy.
Okay.
He put out some good stats that we need to chit chat about. Cleveland.
Good morning, friendly people. We are back. It is week 11, the morning after football, TMA football. Hashtag that if you have a question, a comment. It is Monday, November 18th, 2024. And what a week of football we just witnessed. And we got a great program this morning. I'm fired up. We just watched an amazing Sunday of NFL football action. Some breaking news this morning, and we've got some great guests. Make sure you're following us on social media across all the platforms, right here live on X, where we stream weekly, as well as live on YouTube. Thank you for following and subscribing there. If you haven't, please subscribe at Michael Rippey on YouTube, as well as Instagram Live. Shout out to everyone on Instagram that is watching as well. Make sure to follow across all the platforms, turn on notifications, never miss another episode of TMA Football or all the good content that comes throughout the week, and especially on Mondays. We've got a great guest list today. 8:15 a.m. Pacific time. We'll go into the football fantasy-wise. Before that, we'll get into the real football soon, and we'll have our guest recurring weekly, our guy TV, Terrell Bush for '05 on X. NFL analyst across the spectrum is going to break down what he's seeing. The Eagles win again. He's got a lot to say there, I'm sure. And as well, we'll talk about the big games like KC, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Los Angeles Chargers, and all that was in an exciting, jam-packed weekend of action of football. And a lot of quarterback talk we're going to get into today. If you notice one thing, and that is the banner going across that low part of the screen telling you our schedule today is in a certain color. That color is of one team, and that's where we start. The Detroit Lions. They dominated. They did everything, and Jared Goff returned to form with an absolute ass-kicking of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Be surprised if not during the program we don't see that Jacksonville has fired their coach, Doug Peterson. But that hasn't happened yet. We'll keep you posted on that, but that's why the color is for the top team in the NFL. The no longer second best team is by record, but now that Kansas City was knocked off by Buffalo, Detroit sits atop the throne this season as the number one team in the NFL. And that is why this color is right there for you to see. So again, 7:45 a.m. Pacific, 10:45 a.m. Eastern. We got TB, Terrell Bush, joining us. So without further ado, let's jump into what we do every week to start the program here at TMA Football, and that's break down the box score that was week 11. All right, here we go. So
Fakes left, now taking off. Gonna run for it, he got it! And there he goes! Inside the 10, the 5. Oh, the play of the year in the NFL! Fakes left, now taking off. Involved in everything. And that is what we've seen today. He picks up another first down. Still going. Taysom Hill with his third touchdown today.
the place that is important to be following where you get this information live. You get it from the guys that join us every week, from Terrell Bush, from who we have talking fantasy today. JB Cho knows, excited to have Joshua Cho on the program. Puts out takeaways all Monday, puts out content all week, gets you ready to win your fantasy matchups, get you ready to understand who to pick up from waivers, get you ready to put the start players in. We got some fun ones today. We're going to do the walk of shame team. Who is the team that on Monday morning is the walk of shame? Who are the players? We're going to dive into all of that quite soon right here. But in the meantime, let's see. If you have a comment, you have a question for an analyst, for myself, you can put it in the comments. We'll take it and we'll get it answered. We'll go to the X machine right now to see what people are saying about week 11. It's JB Cho. No, sorry. Josh Chose is joining us soon. You can follow him at JB Cho Knows. He does know. I'm excited to hear what he knows. But anyways, he'll be on the program in just a few minutes. And that's exciting. He'll join us at 8:15 a.m. We're going to take 1 second to go to the pause, and I will be right back as we get Terrell up here talking NFL in 1 second. Okay, so as I tried to do a new way of sharing our box score breakdown, I recognized that no one could hear. What a fail, failblog.org. But anyways, you saw the box score breakdown. We're going to dive into that box score breakdown one more time right here so you can hear the audio that associates with what we just saw. So give 1 second. We're pulling it up right now. Here we go. I'm going to go through the box score breakdown that maybe some of you could not hear as I tested out a new system that clearly was not operating great on my end. Here we go. And we start at the top, which is with the quarterbacks, 9 major keys from week 11. Josh Allen puts on the cape to beat Kansas City. It was incredible. More importantly, Josh Allen put on the cape for 317 total yards, 2 touchdowns, that MVP-worthy highlight run. Jared Goff roars on Sunday, 4 touchdown passes. He threw 5 interceptions last week, none this week, 52-6 Detroit. Taysom Hill does everything vintage this week, 3 touchdowns, New Orleans 35-14 over the Cleveland Browns. Bo Nix, he's cooking. In the conversation for Offensive Rookie of the Year, 28 of 33, 307 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns. What a game for Denver. They go over their season win total of 5.5 in week 11 with their 6th victory of the season, staying in the West. Justin Herbert developing under Jim Harbaugh into an elite quarterback. He was electric in the Chargers 34-27 victory over the Bengals. Speaking of electric, Steelers kicker Chris Boswell, he's electric and elite, kicks Baltimore out of town, 6 of 6, 57-yard field goal attempt was his longest. He scores all Pittsburgh's 18 points. And remember, kickers matter. We saw it. Baltimore's kicker, Justin Tucker, considered widely the best ever to do it, missed 2 field goals, continues to slump. And there is the point. Kickers matter. Chris Boswell did it all for Pittsburgh this Sunday. Vikings Sam Darnold played clean football, and Vikings are 8-2, 246 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Anthony Richardson returned to the starting lineup, returned to winning. The Colts 5-6 with a 28-27 victory over the Jets. Brock Bowers, what I just finished talking about, tight end, rookie, but he doesn't play like a rookie. He's like a seasoned veteran, 13 catches, the most in a single game for a tight end, a new rookie record, 13 catches, 126 yards, 1 touchdown, 34-19. The Vegas Raiders lose, but that one bright spot, Brock Bowers. What a game he had. What a season Brock Bowers is having. and the only one I want to talk about how this season is going and what an electric season it's been for Brock Bowers, for Chris Boswell, for Jared Goff, for Josh Allen is my guy Terrell Bush 05 on X. He's on all the platforms. You can follow him everywhere as we bring him in right now to talk week 11 in the NFL. Terrell, what's up, man?
What's
Happy
going on,
Monday.
Rip? How you doing, man? Happy Monday, bro. Happy Monday,
Hey.
man. I'm excited to get started talking ball with you. I'm glad we got the chain gang going on this morning, man. It looks nice. Looks
Right.
nice on you. Looks nice on me. So let's get started talking ball, baby. Let's do it.
Hey, man, happy Monday. What a week of football it was in week 11. We're about to dive in it, but I see in your post, obviously, you can follow Terrell on social, especially on X at Terrell Bush 05. But more importantly,
Sure.
from the Pro Football Post, let us know what you're up to these days. I know you're doing a lot of Pro Football Post, but I want to make sure everyone can follow you right now.
Yes, sir. So appreciate you for that, Rip. So at Pro Football Post, we post weekly on the stories behind the stories. So, we have the outcomes of the games, but we talk about what led to the outcomes of the game. What's something that specifically may have happened on the sideline that many people may not know that could have led to the outcomes of the game. So we speak football behind football, the game behind the game. So follow us at Pro Football Post on Twitter, on X, and on Instagram. You can follow me at BTB Sports. I post a lot of hot clips from our show here and from my own podcast. So excited to get going, Rip. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So, TB, this week, I've been thinking over the time. We've been going through a lot. We've got a lot of the games to get into. Let's start at the breaking news because we had some breaking news that starts in the NFC East, where I think what some expected, I expected, I'm sure you did, and some others. Daniel Jones has finally been benched in New York. Now, Tommy DeVito will start. They're going back to the Italian Stallion. They're going to see what they can do this year for the rest of the season with DeVito, it appears. Maybe Drew Lock gets in at some point. What's your take on the ending, it seems like, of the Daniel Jones era for the New York Giants?
Definitely. Speaking to your last point, man, it's clearly the end of the era for Daniel Jones as a New York Giant. I mean, when you have 8 total touchdowns and 7 interceptions on the season, it doesn't fare well for you, and it's not necessarily because they feel better as a team with Tommy DeVito as the starting quarterback, but they wanted to get out of the guaranteed money that could potentially come to Daniel Jones if he was hurt potentially for the rest of the season. So they kind of wanted to get up from under that, not being able to guarantee him any money moving forward. And I mean, we could all see Daniel Jones did not fare well as the quarterback for the New York Giants for the time that he was the starting quarterback. So, I mean, I think this was inevitable and everybody saw it coming.
Yeah. And we'll have to see where Daniel Jones continues his career next season. But the Giants are finally out of the Daniel Jones business. It's probably good for Giants fans. They're excited. And we'll see what Tommy DeVito could do. What do you think this does to the Giants just from a quarterbacking position for the rest of this season? Do you think that Tommy DeVito is going to actually perform better than Daniel Jones? Do you think Tommy DeVito is a starting caliber quarterback or potentially? I mean, we saw him last season in bits and he kind of came out of nowhere. And there were moments where he played pretty well. It seemed like he had some command of the offense and there is maybe some potential there. How do you see it?
Tommy DeVito, he provided a splash last year, and he had a little sensation going on in New York for a couple of weeks as he was able to win some games and overcome some deficits. So, I mean, it's going to be a fun story. It's something that's going to get guys riled up. I don't think this is the long-term answer, nor do I think Drew Lock is the long-term answer. I think they're going to start looking forward to the draft and seeing what they could potentially do at that quarterback position, but that is a necessary need for the New York Giants moving forward. But I do not think Tommy DeVito or Drew Lock is the answer moving forward for the New York Giants.
Yeah, I don't think many do, but at least he gets an opportunity. He will step under center this week, week 12, when the New York Giants face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home in New York. So at least he'll have the fans on his side to get it going, I'm sure.
Oh, he'll have the fans by his side for sure. He'll definitely have the fans by his side, definitely. They'll have a lot of this in the stands. Tommy DeVito, he'll have a lot of that going on, man. The Italians.
Lot of meatballs and a lot of chicken cutlets. It should be good. But anyways, the Giants Daniel Jones era ends this week, week 11, when they finally make the change to go to the backup quarterback. All right. So let's go around the league. We had some hell of a games. I started in the box score breakdown talking about Superman put it on his cape, and Superman is Josh Allen. We saw it. It was 4th and 2, 2 minutes to go. Buffalo goes for it, and Josh Allen puts the dagger into Kansas City with a 30-yard plus run. That was electric, highlight reel worthy, MVP worthy. in my opinion, I think Josh Allen vaulted to the lead of the MVP with his performance on Sunday at home to beat Kansas City. Now, before I get to you, the idea that Buffalo is now the team to beat, yeah, it's fun, but it's also week 11. We've seen this for multiple years where Buffalo beats Kansas City in the regular season, but then come playoff time, the split is switched. And all of a sudden, Buffalo can't do it in the playoffs. So again, they do it here in the regular season. You love to see it if you're a Buffalo Bills fan. You feel like everything's going well. What's your ultimate takeaway with Buffalo ending Kansas City's unbeaten season?
I mean, hey, look, Amari Cooper said it perfect, right? The Josh Allen experience has been phenomenal. And I mean, yesterday it was on full display. Like you said, on that 4th down conversion, he put the ball in his hands and said, you know what, I'm going to go win this game. And that's exactly what he did. And that's exactly what we're used to seeing from Josh Allen in these situations against Kansas City, 4-1 against this team in the regular season. But the question is, can he do it in the postseason? This year, I mean, they're 9-2 and for the first time since 1992, and a 12 for 14 conversion rate on 4th down, which is 86%. And that's the best this season. They passed the Commanders at that rate. So, I mean, hey, look, we saw it yesterday, man. Josh Allen is phenomenal. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. A lot of people said, like Damian Woody on Get Up this morning, that he is the best quarterback in the league. And I mean, this season, he's been able to put the team on his back with all of the question marks with, will he be able to get the job done without Stephon Diggs? A lot of his targets and a lot of his yardage came from Stephon Diggs. But at the same time, we've been able to see him go out year after year, time after time, and get the job done. Now, specifically in the postseason, as we look forward, I think this is some of the best ball that Josh Allen has played, man. I mean, when you look at the weapons that he has to his disposal, and this is his 6th straight win. They're 9-2 and they're rolling right now, man. His 39th career game with a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown, only 2nd behind Cam Newton all time. So Josh Allen is playing phenomenally. I'm not mad at your MVP pick as of right now, especially with the performance we saw Lamar Jackson with yesterday. And hey, Buffalo's rolling, and it's something to see, man. I'm not mad at that selection at all as your MVP choice.
Yeah, right now, I mean, look, it's early enough that we can start the conversation on the MVPs, and we have, but it's gonna, another 6-7 weeks to really iron home what's going on. But Buffalo now 9-2, and they have won 6 straight. They look like they are a wagon, and Josh Allen is leading it. And really, everyone always knocked Buffalo for their weapons. What are they going to do with, trading Stephon Diggs? Josh Allen is, he's always getting, killed for some one mistake he'll make here or there compared to all the great plays he does. And he showed it again why he's just an electric quarterback that Buffalo fans love and are lucky to have. And I think NFL fans love to watch. I know I love watching Josh Allen play because he's just such a gamer and makes big plays in big moments in big games. So credit to the Buffalo Bills, who are now
now, look, Britt, moving forward for Buffalo, man, the most important thing as we close this out, the most important thing for them is to make sure that they could potentially get home field advantage. I think that is big for them this year. I mean, Josh Allen has gone on the road and played well. And that's the thing with Josh Allen, though. He plays well in the postseason. It's not on him when they lose games in the postseason. He plays phenomenally. But can they get that home field advantage? I mean, you look at the Chiefs' schedule moving forward. They have the Chargers, the Browns, the Chiefs. They got the Panthers, Raiders. They got the Steelers and the Broncos. So, I mean, they got a potential another loss in that. I think Buffalo should hope that another team could potentially knock them off.
Yeah, and you would think that there's potential for more losses in Kansas City because as we've been doing this all season now, 3 months in, we've seen multiple games where we thought Kansas City snuck out a victory that they could have had a defeat in easily. So you're right, Buffalo looking for another loss out of Kansas City so that Buffalo could potentially get that 1 seed, the bye, alongside all of the home field advantage that the top seed brings. Just a note, Buffalo is now on bye. They will return next on Sunday Night Football in 2 weeks to take on the defending Super Bowl runner-up, the San Francisco 49ers, who are in a whole, hurting, a whole world of hurt out there in the Bay. But
Yes,
Buffalo
they
run through Kansas City, and now they'll take on the other team that was in Super Bowl last year, and that is the 49ers. We'll see how they play. And their schedule sets up for a really exciting game in just a few weeks into middle of December, where could be the game of the year. Buffalo will travel to Detroit and take on those Detroit Lions December 15th. That will be a good one. We don't want you. Yeah, is right. We don't need to look too far ahead, but that will be the game of the year. And in fact, the reason that the headlines are scrolling with that blue is to credit that Detroit Lions team, which performed admirably on Sunday. But let's not talk about them because that was a blowout. Detroit beats Jacksonville 52-6. Let's go to Sunday Night Football, right? Because it's the last game we saw last night. We wake up this morning, and it was a doozy, right? Los Angeles, Justin Herbert, Jim Harbaugh. Cincinnati's trying to save their season, comes in Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. What a game. And it looks like early on it's not a game because, Justin Herbert is slinging it everywhere, looks incredible, and the Chargers are up big. Cincinnati fights back, looks like they can get the game, but they don't. And at the end, Justin Herbert gets it done, leading the Chargers to victory. What was your take on Sunday Night Football? And more specifically, when you think about Justin Herbert's development and what we're seeing out of the Los Angeles Chargers in Jim Harbaugh's first season?
I mean, Jim Harbaugh, you said it perfectly to end off your sentiment, man. I mean, Justin Herbert is crediting off of Jim Harbaugh. And I said this last week, speaking on Justin Herbert a little bit and how they're opening the offense up a little bit more and more and more as the year has gone on for him. Early on, they were banking on their defense and they were banking on the run game to get them by games. And they played phenomenally at that style of play, because you see Harbaugh's coming off of the Michigan championship last year. And what did they do extremely well? Play defense, and they ran the football effectively. And this year they brought that to the Chargers, and you could just see the culture change. You could see the team change top to bottom. Justin Herbert, I mean, yesterday he played for the first half. I mean, he's looking lights out. I mean, like you said, Rip, he came in, they were up 24-6 going into halftime, and he was looking good. And then you see as Cincinnati was able to rally coming out of halftime. But specifically speaking to the Chargers, it gave me flashes almost of 2023 when we saw them give that lead up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in the wild card round, man. I'm like, hold on, let's not have this happen again. And they were able to rally to their fourth straight win, and it just goes to their personality and their culture. But I mean, Justin Herbert, the third most game-winning drive since 2020, 15th, trailing only Patrick Mahomes and Kirk Cousins in that time span. So Justin Herbert's playing phenomenally. That defense is playing ball, and Harbaugh is definitely doing his thing as the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams. But if we want to go and talk about Cincinnati a little, should I go into Cincinnati, or are you going to talk about going to Cincinnati?
No. Let's go on to Cincinnati.
For Cincinnati, man, you just gotta feel for him, man. Joe Burrow specifically, because if it wasn't for all of these late game losses going this year, man, he would be atop of the MVP. I think he would be maybe the leading candidate for league MVP if those games, those 1-6, that 1-6 record in one score games this year was flipped. If he was able to just flip that record, or at least win 4 of those 7 games, I think he would be one of the front runners for league MVP. He's playing phenomenally, but now their chances of making the playoffs are slim as they stand at a 21%. According to ESPN analytics, I mean, after you trail by 21 in that third quarter and come back the way that they did, Rip, I mean, you got to feel for the guy, man. You got to feel for him, man.
And this has been the Bengals season the whole year. Every week it seems like it's another opponent and the same result, where Burrow is balling out. We're seeing big plays across the field offensively. I mean, when you look at Joe Burrow's numbers, as you mentioned, if they were winning more games, he'd be right there at the top of the MVP candidate conversation. I mean, he's 67% completion this year. He's got 3,028 yards passing, 27 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 106.9 quarterback rating. He's having a hell of a season, Joe Burrow. He's playing the best football of his career, and he's had a sterling career to start, right? So it's wild, because we came into this season wondering about Joe Burrow. Was he going to be healthy from this weird injury he had that put him out at the end of last year? And all he's done is come into this season and be the best version of himself. And unfortunately for Cincinnati and their fans, it's not translating into victories, but it's not because of Joe Burrow.
It's not because of Joe Burrow, Rip. It's not because of Joe Burrow. And those 3 losses that he has this season with 3+ touchdowns, 300+ passing yards, and 0 interceptions are the most in a season during the Super Bowl era. Those statistics at the quarterback position normally lead to wins. When you pass for 3+ passing touchdowns, 300+ yards total, and you have 0 interceptions on the board, and you constantly lose football games, that just speaks volumes to how they're not a complete football team, top to bottom. You got to see that they have to go into the offseason and really address the defense specifically. The defense needs to get up on its feet and play football, because they're wasting years of Joe Burrow's career.
Well, not only do I think they have to adjust the defense, I think that they have to adjust 2 other positions that are very important. And let's start at kicker, right? Because either Evan McPherson needs to make the field goals because they've continued to lose games where they've missed field goals. And we've been seeing it across the league that in 2024, kickers matter. They matter big time. And if you're not making your kicks, it's a big problem. Evan McPherson, 2 for 4 on field goals, ain't going to get it done with his long of 27. You get those 2 extra field goals, you get one of them, and all of a sudden you're in the game, you win the game, who knows? But you got to make your field goals, and Evan McPherson didn't against the Chargers. But more importantly, they may be looking for a new coach. What do you think about that idea that maybe Zach Taylor's time could be up in Cincinnati when you think about the coaches that are on the sideline right now, starting with Bill Belichick? I mean, can you imagine a Bill Belichick with Joe Burrow? That you said fix the defense. Who's going to fix the defense better than Bill Belichick, the greatest NFL head coach ever? So
That's a great call.
We'll see. But if I'm Zach Taylor, I'm worried. Here's the thing. Cincinnati is not dead yet. The crazy thing is they keep losing and you keep saying they can't get there, right? The record doesn't look like it. It doesn't look good. They're 4-7, but theoretically, the Bengals are not done. They run off 6 straight, 10-7. I mean, maybe 9-8. Even they could lose another, and maybe they slide in. Probably not. But the Bengals are not dead yet. So we're going to keep this going. Probably be back here week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the same thing. Burrow's awesome, and yet the Bengals lose. But we'll wait till that. Bengals are still alive, even though they fall to 4-7. Conversely, what do you think about Justin Herbert? I know you talked about Jim Harbaugh, but where do we put Justin Herbert? Because a lot of the conversation since Justin Herbert came into the NFL was he's this huge talent, massive arm, and it just didn't ever really get done out west for the Chargers. And this year, at the start of Sunday Night Football, I said, you're watching Justin Herbert and the Chargers, and this guy looks like the best quarterback in football. Really. Right? He's just moving
and grooving, man. He was moving and grooving, Rip. And
throwing across his body, hitting guys like with dimes, just perfect passes. And so where are we supposed to put Justin Herbert now? I mean, is this the guy that can go win a Super Bowl?
I mean, with the structure around him, you have to credit that, man. You have to think that with what he has around him, the stability that he has now at the head coaching position and the culture that is set and the scheme that they run, everything's not placed on Justin Herbert like it was in years past. It's not Justin Herbert go out there, throw for 400 plus yards. Let's air it out 50 plus times a game, 40 plus times a game. Let's go try to win football games. Now there's a structure. Now there's a scheme. Jim Harbaugh has this team rolling. The defense plays football. The defense is phenomenal. The top 5, top 6 in the NFL. But now they have a running game. Now they have a running scheme and a passing scheme to bounce off of the run game. So now everything's not predicated off of can Justin Herbert win his ball games, but it's more so predicated off can this team rally and win football games. And yesterday was a big step moving forward as they win their 4th straight. And as you see them being able to hold off a hot Cincinnati team that came in and was able to rally in that second half. So it just speaks volumes that it's not all on Justin Herbert, but it is that scheme and that team around him. But Justin Herbert is playing phenomenally with what he has to offer. And hey, Justin Herbert, he's like, hey, don't forget about me now. All right. I know we speak about Mahomes and Allen and Burrow and Lamar and everybody in the AFC and the NFC, but don't forget about me now. I am one of those top guys as well. And he showed it last night.
He is one of those top guys. We'll continue to monitor Justin Herbert's progress. The Chargers are 7-3. Jim Harbaugh, in his first season in LA, has not only the Chargers in contention for the playoffs solely there, but look, Chiefs slip up and Chiefs Chargers in a couple weeks. Chargers could be right there. I know it sounds funny yet, but the Chargers are playing really good football. And what we know is Jim Harbaugh wins games. Jim Harbaugh has the highest career winning percentage of any human being that's alive right now that has coached the NFL. So this guy wins. He came into this season when they hired him. I had in the offseason. He was a 695 percentage winner, which was the greatest. This year at 7-3, he's at a 70% clip. So he's even a little bit above his career winning percentage. You'll love to see it. It's good for Chargers fans. It's good for the NFL that Jim Harbaugh, and that sets up the Harbaugh Bowl next week where we get Chargers. We get Ravens. And speaking of those Ravens and John Harbaugh, the Ravens can look like the best team in football, and then they can look like a team that you're wondering, how are they the best team in football? Because we saw it again on Sunday. AFC North matchup, always a doozy. Pittsburgh, Baltimore. But Pittsburgh gets the W and doesn't score any points outside of their kicker, Chris Boswell, 6 for 6, gets all the points for Pittsburgh, wins the game 18-16 over Baltimore. What was your takeaway from this big matchup that now has Pittsburgh sitting atop the AFC North at 8-2 and Baltimore at 7-4?
Baltimore, they are a flawed, dominant team, right? They have their areas where we look at them week after week and we see the splash plays. We see Lamar and his creativity. We see Derrick Henry. We see all the flashy toys and the big plays and the downfield attack and the ability to be able to get teams out of there. But when they have a matchup or a team that goes into the ball game like the Pittsburgh Steelers, like the Kansas City Chiefs, that's seen Lamar, that knows the scheme, that understands where they have to go in order to limit Lamar Jackson, that's when they struggle and that's when they have problems. And we saw it yesterday with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, Lamar does struggle against the Pittsburgh Steelers as he's 1-4 as a career starter. Back-to-back games under 100 yards rushing. They step away in the biggest moments from what they do best as a football team. And that's questionable when you look at them and you understand that they are a dominant running football team, right? They're a dominant running the football, but they go away from it in the biggest spots and they get pass happy and they try to just put it all on Lamar, forgetting their scheme, forgetting what got them there. And yesterday, I mean, it just spoke volumes. And you see the time of possession. Pittsburgh limited them to 23 minutes of time of possession. And for a team like Baltimore that likes to run out, that likes to run the football, that likes to work off the play action game, that likes to get Lamar Jackson in space and able to create plays, they weren't able to do that. And they must have felt the pressure because they didn't possess the football as much as they would have hoped. And for Justin Tucker, like you said, we were speaking about Evan McPherson and the kickers this year. I mean, the miss, go 1 for 3 yesterday, and the question marks surrounding Justin Tucker. We're not used to seeing him miss this much, Rip. And it's questionable, to see down the stretch, will this team be able to win those ball games in the playoffs? My focus for the Baltimore Ravens is not the regular season, it's the postseason. But when you see matchups like yesterday, the way Pittsburgh was able to dominate in terms of time of possession, in terms of defensively being able to rattle Lamar Jackson, those raise questions for down the line for the playoffs for the Baltimore Ravens.
Questions were raised in a game that we watched yesterday from the AFC North. Pittsburgh gets the W, make really good points. It's the confidence factor in what Baltimore is doing has faded over the last few weeks because of that variance that we see out of the squad, depending on who they play. We can see them beat anybody easily, and then we can see them lose games where you go, man, we just want a little bit more out of Baltimore. But again, we're going to judge them on their playoff run this year, but they're going to have to keep winning to make sure they get into the playoffs. Pittsburgh, victorious over Baltimore in week 11. Pittsburgh sits atop of the AFC North Mountain. All right, let's dive in to a big matchup from Thursday Night Football. We normally don't talk much about TNF, but we have to do it. You're a Philly guy. You must have loved what you saw. We saw the Eagles Commanders. Philadelphia takes control of the NFC East. So give us your breakdown on what we saw, not only from obviously the victorious Philadelphia Eagles and Saquon Barkley, but also Jayden Daniels and the Commanders.
Definitely. So for Philadelphia, huge win to take command, like you said, of the NFC East. This was a ball game that they needed to win at home, and it was their first primetime game since the Week 2 loss to the Atlanta Falcons. So back in the spotlight, back at home, how can this team rally and make sure that they get the win and take command of the NFC East? And I mean, they did just that. It was a slow start in the first half, and that's the question with the Philadelphia Eagles. Are they able to get those first half, that first quarter, those first quarter touchdowns? Are they able offensively to rally in that first half? Because they're not able to. I mean, this year, they're not being able to run the football, pass the football. They look sporadic offensively when you look at them in the first half, but then talent prevails all. When you have A.J. Brown, when you have Devontae Smith, when you have Jalen Hurts, when you have that prolific offense and that downfield attack, they're able to just overcome the talent disparity between the two teams. And I mean, you see Saquon Barkley having his Christian McCaffrey effect this year on this ball club. I mean, the way that he's able to run the football, the way that he's able to catch the football, the way that he's able to hurdle people backwards and jump over people, spin off of people. He's just a dominant runner. I mean, he looks like the offensive player of the year, man, the way that Philadelphia has rallied around Saquon Barkley. This is one of the best signings for Philadelphia that we've seen in recent memory for me personally. Outside of AJ, I mean, even AJ Brown was a great offseason acquisition, but Saquon Barkley, man, the things that he's being able to do for this football team, without him, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in now. We would not be leading the NFC East without Saquon Barkley. And that's one of the things, one of the beauties about being able to acquire a talent like Saquon Barkley and the way that he's being able to rally around this team. And they look for him to make big plays in big spots. And that's the thing that I want. Man, I'm just super excited to see what Saquon Barkley could do moving forward. But I mean, look, the scheme still needs some adjustments, right? first half, first quarter, still not looking like we know what we're doing coming out the gate. We need to be ready for teams like Detroit. We need to be ready for some of those better teams within the NFC, because when the playoffs come, we can't just rely on talent to prevail all. And for the Washington Commanders, man, I mean, Jaden Daniels, he's having a phenomenal rookie season, right? I mean, the Commanders have passed everybody's expectations as where they would be at this point in the year. I mean, even being in the contention for being in the lead of the NFC East is a huge step forward for them. I think they're a few pieces away, a few years away, maybe next year, 2 years from now, they'll start looking at that dominant team within the NFC East or within the NFC totally. But at the end of the day, man, big win for the Philadelphia Eagles, man, the way that they were able to rally in that second half and prevail.
Hey, you always break it down so well, especially with the team that you love, that is the Eagles. And everybody, not just Eagles fans, but NFL fans, maybe outside of New York, are overjoyed by watching Saquon Barkley play. I mean, he makes highlight reel plays. He's got the team on his back. And it's a joy to see him thriving in Philadelphia. Philadelphia, like Buffalo, winners of 6 straight. They go to 8-2. They have a game-and-a-half lead over those Commanders in the NFC East. So really in pole position outside Philadelphia. Now, if Detroit drops a game, we could be looking at Philadelphia potentially having home field throughout, currently sitting in the 2 seed in the NFC playoffs. There's still a lot of time to go, but you love to see it. All right, we've got about 4 minutes left to go. Terrell. So let's do this. I wanted to do something new this week to add in a quick segment, but we're going to have my guy Joshua Joe join Talking Fantasy in just a few minutes. So excited to do that. But before we get there, let's finish off here. It is the morning after. It is Monday, right? The morning after, you're either doing 2 things. You're doing the walk of shame, or maybe you got the phone out and you're just texting your best friend because you're just on fire. You got to text someone about the night that was. And so let's start with the walk of shame. There's no preference. You didn't even know about this, but we're doing it. So the walk of shame team. What is the team from week 11 that fits the walk of shame? It's just disappointing. You're embarrassed. You can't believe you supported them. You thought this, but you're seeing this. Who's the walk of shame team from week 11?
I mean, that's easy, Rip. I mean, I love this segment, man. And let's talk about the New York Jets, man. I mean, if you're a Jets fan right now, man, it's just got to be gut punch after gut punch after gut punch, because week after week, you expect this team. I mean, they're 3-8 now. And last week they were 3-7. The week before they're 3-6. Can we rally off a win? Can we get back into the playoff picture? Can we finally do it? Can Aaron Rodgers come through for us and be discount double check? Can he do it? And they lose again. And they lose again. And they lose again. And it's just gut punch after gut punch for the New York Jets in the way that we thought that this team will rally this season. So I got to say the walk of shame has to go to the New York Jets. And it's tough for them, Rip. It's really tough for them out in New York.
It's really tough for Jets fans because even when they get super excited, it's the same result. It's a new season, same result. I love that one, actually. Let's flip it. Instead of doing the walk of shame, you get your tail between your legs. It's not going well for you. You can't believe it. You blacked out. The night was bad. And instead, you can't forget the night that was or the day that was. You had the best day ever. You're getting out the phone. Who am I telling? I'm telling the world that this is the team. This is the team that I love. This was awesome. Give it to us. Who is that team you're texting about from week 11?
I mean, hey, you got to go down to Detroit, man. I mean, the way that they were able to beat down the Jags, I mean, I know it's the Jag, but 52-6, coming off of last week when Jared Goff throws 5 interceptions, he still win that ball game. Coming back this week, he goes 24 for 29, 412, and 4 touchdowns. Jared Goff, man, the Detroit Lions. I'm texting my buddies if I'm out in Detroit, like, hey, it's either Super Bowl or bust for us, man. We got to get there. We got to do it because we have the team for it. It looks like everything in the NFC is going to go through Detroit, and that bodes well for the Detroit Lions. So I think you're texting your buddies this morning saying, Detroit, we got us one this year, man. Let's go win it.
Well, those are really good answers to the question that I didn't tell you about. A new segment, Walk of Shame, and who we're texting. I love
that. I like that one, Rip. I like that one, man. Let's keep doing it. Let's keep that going,
man. We're developing it. You see what we're doing? We're here cooking. We're cooking like Chris Boswell kicking. We're cooking like Jared Goff throwing. We're cooking like Josh Allen running.
Yeah,
we are here to cook. All right. It is the morning after. That is hashtag TMA football. And I'm always joined weekly by my guy, Terrell Bush. Look, we are maybe going to need to extend these segments because they're so much fun. We do this every Monday. It's so great. And this was week 11. We'll see you back for week 12. But before you go, make sure to let everyone know where they can follow you, what they can see, and make sure you're following my guy, TB.
Definitely. So, hey, guys, Twitter at Terrell Bush 05. Make sure you follow me this week because I will be posting that last segment on the pod and on the page. So make sure you guys follow me at Terrell Bush 05 and at Pro Football Post. If you're a reader, if you like NFL content, we're the place for you. And BTB Sports on Instagram, man, to find all the clips from the show and my own podcast. So Rip, appreciate you. Appreciate the everybody that's tuning in. Can't wait to join you again for next week, man. TMA, let's do it.
See you in week 12, TB. Always a pleasure to have you here. Have
Yes,
a
sir.
good one. That was Terrell Bush 05. You saw him. He told you follow him on X at Terrell Bush 05. Follow the Pro Football Post because they're putting up great content, great work, and help you understand the week that was, the week that's coming up better and better. One of my favorite guests. That's why he's here weekly. No one does the NFL talking real football better than Philadelphia's own TB. So we now move into going from what a lot of people know is fantasy, but it feels real all too regularly. And it felt real for me this week in week 11 as I kept getting those Brees Hall to my fantasy squad. Josh Allen was getting those touchdowns, and some of those players, hopefully on your squads, were getting those touchdowns. Someone that knows about touchdowns and knows about how to help you win in fantasy football is a friend that I've known now for a period on X, and does some of the best content ever. So let's bring him in, this week's fantasy analyst and guest on TMA Football Week 11. JB Cho knows Joshua Cho. Welcome, Joshua.
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks for having me on. Glad to join you and talk some football.
Hey, it's a pleasure, man. I one of my favorite fantasy analysts to talk to, and always following your content. Obviously, you put out stuff all throughout the week, but none better than your Monday takeaways. You really dive into the players, and we're going to do that in a second. But let's make sure, tell everyone where they could follow you and where they should find your content.
All right. Well, I'm on X, and I'm always willing to help and try to answer as many questions as I can. Putting out daily content Monday through Friday. On X at JB Cho Knows. So you see it on the screen right there. But, Rip, I heard you guys talking about the walk of shame, and you said the word embarrassing. And I just heard the word bear kind of come out in embarrassing because, my goodness, my Bears, I was watching with my son, and we were both just like, what just happened? But I don't want to get off track right away. But
No.
Just, man, that was painful to see. And we could have run it one more time to just at least get a few more yards. We still had the timeout. And our coach, who needs to be fired, really, truly, I mean, what are you doing? There's a big difference between a 40-yard kick and a 46-yard kick, even a 43-yard kick and a 46-yard kick. So that was absolutely dismal play calling and time management. So, yeah, that would be the walk of shame. If there's a little rollover from the previous segment that you had. Definitely feeling it, man.
There is. Look, I'm sorry. You really nailed it right there with the Bears and embarrassing. Yeah. And there is a rollover, and it's great to hear. I'm sorry as a Bears fan. So let me just quickly ask you.
Yeah.
What's the remedy for the issues in Chicago? Is it that I know that they fired the offensive coordinator last week.
Yeah.
Is it going to be where there's a new organization and regime in place going into next season? Is that what the remedy is going to be?
Yeah. I'm surprised that they didn't do it already, to be I'm completely honest. And I don't even know why they kept Eberflus around if they're going to fire the OC. Waldron was just, he was not very good. And even in this game back, I think we saw Caleb Williams a lot more comfortable actually and able to run around and do some of the things that we know that he can do. So it's promising. I'm glad that there was a bit of a bounce back with Caleb. But just overall, I think our line is still a big issue. Giving Caleb Williams time to see the field and do all the things he needs to do. He's uber talented, but he's still a rookie. So you need to give him time to be able to process and go through his progressions and everything like that, everything they're expecting of him. But yeah, it was good to see him moving around. I mean, I think he had almost 100 yards on the ground rushing this week. And so maybe we'll see a little bit more of that, which definitely boosts his fantasy stock. But yeah, I think we just have to have a whole overhaul. I think the coach is going to be gone. We'll see how OC does right now, the new OC. But yeah, I think if we don't shore up our line, I mean, you could put anyone under center and it's not going to look very good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, you're right. I mean, Caleb ran for 70 yards on 9 carries. He looked better this week, but there's got to be a big change. And one of the big changes that Chicago is going to need, no matter who's the coach, is they're going to have to win games in the division. When you're playing in the NFC North that has the Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers,
I know, man.
It's a loaded division.
Yeah.
The Bears are 4-6. but they're 0-4 in division play. That's not going to cut it, right? 4-6, they're getting all their wins outside the division. So that's going to need to be fixed. There is, not saying it, but there is a really, really, really well-known head coach that knows defense well, and he's not employed right now by a football team. So maybe Chicago would want him, Bill Belichick. I don't know, but we'll see. A lot of people, look, I was someone that was shocked that Matt Eberflus got another shot to stay in Chicago, but obviously it's proven that he shouldn't have. And so I do agree with you. I think regime change is going to be the biggest offseason move for Chicago, and we'll have to see who they decide to front that organization to go along with their rookie quarterback and Caleb Williams. Let's not dive too much there, because I want to get a lot of fantasy breakdown with you. But before, because we rolled over with the walk of shame, how about we flip it? We heard from my guy TB on who his team he's texting about, he was excited about. What was one team for week 11 that you were excited about?
Oh, man. I think I'll probably agree with him with the Lions, man. I mean, granted, it was the Jaguars and everyone beats up on the Jaguars, but man, they did not let up. Amon-Ra was still out there catching touchdowns when they were up like 40, 50 points. So, I think that mentality, I think, is infectious, and the whole team just wants to dominate and win. And I do think it might bite them if the coach is a little too aggressive at times, like always going for it on fourth. I think it's a weird trend in football right now where I know analytics is a big thing, but like, man, people don't settle for easy points anymore. It's like you could kick a field goal and get 3 points, but everyone's like going for it, and I think maybe I'm old school, but I say take the points whenever you can, No, you're not. Even when I'm playing Madden, it's like, I'm kicking the field goal,
Yeah, no. This is a big theme of this season that I've been pointing towards for a while now. Analytics gone wild, what I call it. I want to do a segment, Analytics Gone Wild, because I get it. Analytics are important. It's good to know some of these details that can help you get a little advantage, but they've gone too far. When you're in the fourth quarter, you've got a field goal opportunity to go in the lead, and you're down, and you're passing these points up because you've got a 4th and 2, or for whatever reason, it makes no sense. We're seeing this all the time now, where it's just gone way, way, way down the pendulum too far.
Agreed.
And it's like people are playing Madden in the NFL. But okay, we could talk about that for a long time, because I'm right there with you on what's going on with taking the points. Old school maybe should be the new school way of thought. Get those points, get the lead, stop giving up the easy first downs when you can get points. We saw kickers matter. I've been saying this for a long time. Kickers really do matter in the NFL. They don't get enough love. Okay, you're here to talk fantasy. I want to hear from your fantasy. Obviously, I read through what you put out this morning, your takeaways. It was heavy on the quarterbacks, and so we've seen a lot of the quarterbacks. There's a segment I want to do with you, but I just want to get your overall sort of fantasy talk, because we know NFL season goes to week 18. Fantasy season, we're right up there in the last few weeks of the regular season, depending on the league, the style, whatever settings.
Sure.
Your playoffs are starting either week 14, week 15. So it's coming soon. We've got less than a month here. What's your overall view on 2024 fantasy, just in general? What are you seeing this season that sort of differentiates from past and trends that we are picking up on?
So I don't know if I'm stubborn, but I haven't changed a lot of my philosophy with fantasy football in terms of when I'm taking redraft, right? We're talking redraft right now. Your regular seasonal leagues that the majority of the population plays. I think we're seeing the value of like having good running backs on your rosters. People kind of started going away from a little bit, even in their draft process. A lot of wide receivers going in the first and second rounds before kind of heavy volume running backs. And so this season, we see a lot of running backs. A lot of teams that are winning are the ones who have those, veteran running backs that are scoring, that are getting a lot of volume and touches. So I don't know. I guess not to harp on people trying to be too, innovative in some way with the whole zero RB and all that kind of stuff that's always been going on. I think if you stick to drafting top RBs early and then having like a smattering of high upside wide receivers, quality wide receivers later, and then QBs much later, and then tight ends even later than that. Like that's generally a strategy I think that has worked for me over the course of the last 20 plus years that I've been playing fantasy football. And I think it's true of this season as well. But it's been an awesome season. Like every season is fun and it has its different ups and downs. Definitely a lot of injuries, going on. Like I had Rashee Rice on so many teams. He was a great value. And then when he went down, it was like, oh man, what am I going to do? And even for Dynasty, like having him on the IR for the whole season, that's a little bit less painful because, you still have him coming back in the next year. But yeah, I think overall, it's been a lot of fun seeing a lot of players that I kind of put my, plant my flag on. Seeing Darnold really shine this year has been a lot of fun for me to watch because everyone harped on my tweets saying I still believe in Darnold. Although, he had a little bit of a crashing out last week against a choice matchup. But he bounced right back this week, and so, yeah, I don't, before I ramble on, it's just been a fun season for me.
Yeah, no, a really fun season. And so your takeaways this week, talked a lot about quarterbacks. Sam Darnold mentioned in there, you talked about Bo Nix, you talked about just a number of quarterbacks. And Tua was mentioned. You throw some really good details. Was there a quarterback specifically in week 11 that sort of impressed you fantasy wise that maybe you weren't so prepared for? I mean, Justin Herbert, does that ring a bell? I mean, who are we looking at? Because, what we want to do is help and kind of pinpoint who's going to be the winning players down the stretch here. So quarterback wise, I mean, what do you see from some of those names that you mentioned? Because some of these guys are on that fringe of maybe you're starting, you're debating it. So what are we looking at?
So I would say Justin Herbert is a quarterback that I have been kind of pushing for people to pick up for the last several weeks, actually. Kind of a slow start, but man, he's really turning it on right now. We saw, yesterday, just, man, that was a really fun first half. He kind of slowed down in the second half a little bit, but he had 297 yards, 2 TDs, and he carried the ball 5 times for 65 yards. And I think that's kind of the element of Justin Herbert that a lot of people kind of maybe forget about. Herbert had some leg issues, ankle issues that I think kept him from being his full self because he's a big boy and he can run, like Josh Allen, we always talk about with how strong he is and he can run. Like Herbert has some moves and he's a pretty big guy. So if he can add that element and keep it somewhat, regular, like, 25 to 40 yards, like kind of, split out, between his games, even without that, he has terrific matchups upcoming. So he's someone that if he's still somehow on your waiver wire, like you need to go pick him up because I've been saying he's going to be a potential league winner in the second half of the season. One maybe a little bit lower, like easier to get player that I was thinking about was Will Levis. Now he had 1 touchdown to, Nick Westbrook-Akine that, made up a lot of his yardage total. But he's looked pretty decent after coming back. And he has a really nice schedule up ahead. Houston, Washington, Jacksonville twice, Cincinnati. And so if you're kind of desperate for somewhat of an upside play at quarterback or in Superflex for sure as your QB2, I think Will Levis is someone that I would consider as well.
Yeah, I think it's I like that you go out there. I mean, this is the guy that it's tough to put him in your lineup and play, but yeah, he's played well. And I mean, he had a 98-yard passing touchdown in week 11. That was a great throw. So that's impressive, especially against a Minnesota defense that was attacking, ball hawking. So yeah, I mean, maybe he's a guy that you want to watch, but yeah, Justin Herbert, he's big, he's strong, and he runs like a bull, and he's really good. And we saw it again in week 11. And if you have him on your fantasy team, you may be in for a league-winning type of player. Okay, let's get to the segment here because we could talk a lot ways, but here's what we like to do. It's fantasy buys, fantasy good buys. Basically, one player at each position that we want to buy for the stretch run and one player we want to wave goodbye to that maybe we rode for now, but we're looking forward through the rest of the month, through the next 2 months. How can we get to the playoffs and how can we win in the playoffs for this week? Did this last weekend with my guy, Frank Amarante, and it's excited to do it with you this week. So we'll start at the quarterback position. Give me a guy who you want to buy for fantasy. And let's preface this with, we're talking about sort of your standard redraft 12-team standard, either, half point PPR or 1 point PPR league. So the general population that's going to watch this, see this clip, can have a good idea of a guy that we want to buy fantasy-wise. We'll start at quarterback.
So, I mean, we talked about him already, but Justin Herbert would definitely be one of those guys. And I feel like I've said enough about him with his passing upside and his rushing upside. But another guy I mentioned is a rookie who has been surprising to me, is Bo Nix. Terrific schedule ahead, and he's just cooking, man. I mean, he had another 300 yards and 4 touchdowns this past week, or just in week 11. And so he might be like someone's QB2 on their team if people are rostering 2 quarterbacks. Like a lot of people like to roster one kind of steady guy and then one potential upside guy. So if someone has Bo Nix on their team and they have another good QB, you might want to try to go and get Nix, from that manager, because he seems to be. I mean, I don't want to call him the real deal because I still have my, a little bit of hesitation with being all in on Nix as good as he's been. But for fantasy purposes, I think he's definitely a buy.
Yeah, I mean, 4 passing touchdowns yesterday in week 11 for Bo Nix, and his numbers over the last 2 months have been really good. And
Yeah,
look at Denver. Denver's in the playoffs right now.
exactly.
They've got a winning record, and they're doing things that no one thought was possible. They've already broken their season win total in week 11 with 6. They were projected by Vegas to have 5.5 all season. So Bo Nix has been electric, and the debate is going to start, and I'm ready to start it. We don't need to do it here, but
Yeah.
has Bo Nix been better than Jaden Daniels is the question. I mean, you start to
Yeah.
look at and compare their teams, their stats and stuff, and you go, hey, maybe Bo Nix has been the best, rookie quarterback,
Yeah.
regardless of upside. But anyways, that's for another day. Okay, you touched on Herbert, you touched on Bo Nix. Let's flip it. Who's a quarterback that we want to say goodbye to from a fantasy perspective in 2024?
All right. Coming into the season, there was no quarterback that I think had as much hype, both in dynasty and redraft, as one CJ Stroud. Now, I love CJ Stroud. I think his character, his ability is all there. But something with the offensive line and with the offense is just not clicking right now. I know Nico Collins being out had a lot to do with that. Not having your best weapon, is and then losing Diggs as well is going to be really difficult. But he's someone that I just don't think I can trust as my starting quarterback moving forward for fantasy football purposes. And so he's definitely someone I wave by to. I kind of thought of a couple for each. So another person too is, I know it's coming off of like his best game of the season, but Jared Goff, if you can sell him and get someone who I would take Herbert for Goff. I would take, Kyler Murray, like guys like that I think have a little bit more upside and stability. If I can move off of Goff. So my main one is CJ Stroud, though, to say bye to this season.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? There's a big disconnect, I think, with CJ Stroud in general between real football and fantasy. Maybe it's come closer because he hasn't been that good in real football this season comparatively to his rookie year. But the thing about CJ is, even he's getting into those passing touchdowns with Nico if he's there, and with Tank, and even if Diggs was there, he doesn't run the ball. He doesn't get you those rush yards, which we know from a fantasy perspective at the quarterback position, that dual threat, that rushing ability really adds to the score. It gives you a nice base, and it gives you that huge upside that you really need to win fantasy matchups when it comes down to playoffs and in big matchups. So CJ Stroud makes a lot of sense there. Let's move to the running back position. Who do you want to buy at running back for the stretch run? Number of names, obviously running back has been essential to winning in fantasy in 2024 specifically. So who are we buying fantasy wise?
Okay, so one guy that I'm thinking of had another terrific game against the hapless Jacksonville D. David Montgomery. I know you might be thinking Gibbs, but I think Gibbs tends to be a little bit too expensive, and so I always want to get the value guy. Montgomery actually outtouched Gibbs this past week. But 95 total yards and 2 touchdowns this week. And he's the cheapest of the Lions backfield in fantasies that you're going to be able to get. So he's someone that just continues to stay involved. And if the Lions get ahead, he's the hammer, right? He's going to be the one who finishes it off. And so there's a lot of value in that, especially for such a high scoring team. And we saw that, this week. So he's definitely someone that I want to buy. He's never been someone that people are like super excited about, but I feel like he's starting to gain and garner more attention from people simply because he just keeps on producing. But for a while, people didn't really have much to say about David Montgomery. They were like, "Oh, he's just a guy." But no, there's like something that he does when he runs. I mean, I saw him, run in Chicago as well when he was on our squad. But it's something about the intangibles, the way that he moves, and especially just his work ethic. man, he's someone that you want on your team. He's going to produce for you.
Yeah, he had another electric game, 15 carries, 75 yards, an average of 5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. You mentioned Gibbs. Gibbs, hell of a game himself, 11 carries, 69 yards, 6.3 average. It was the Jaguars. Surprised they haven't fired their coach this Monday morning yet. But anyways, look, I've been giving credit all morning to the Detroit Lions. It's the reason that this bar right here is in Detroit Lions blue, Honolulu blue, is because of the performance that Detroit put on in week 11. So I like that call. David Montgomery, solid, strong, gets it done with a great offense. He's a guy that I agree you'd love to buy. On the flip side, who do you want to say goodbye to?
Actually, like for me, can I just say one more thing on the buying side? Because Montgomery seems like the easy one, but there is one guy that I was really excited about coming into the league that finally has gotten a chance to shine, and it's a good time to buy now. I mean, I've been saying to buy him as well for a few weeks now, but Tyrone Tracy Jr. on the Giants, I think it's a great time to buy. He has a great schedule coming up, but he's already shown out like as a rookie, 2 games already as an RB1. And I know there's been a change at quarterback to DeVito, from Daniel Jones. And so I think that they might rely even more on the run game, right? And that bodes well for Tyrone Tracy. And his story is just awesome too. I mean, was a receiver, hasn't really had much, work as a running back, but he just knows he runs hard. He doesn't run like he used to be a receiver. I mean, he hits the hole and he just goes.
He finds it. He goes, and like you said, his story is fantastic, and he was a wide receiver, and I think that gives him an advantage, actually, because he obviously has great hands, so he knows how to catch the ball out of the backfield. Exactly. He can take those screen passes, those short passes, and make them into long plays. He's a great guy to go by, and a guy that's, coming into the season, no one even heard of. You were not drafting Tyrone Tracy thinking this is the guy. And, and by
not
that,
everyone was.
Well, but what I mean by that is you talk about David Montgomery, an established guy.
Yeah.
When you talk about Tyrone Tracy, he was a guy where you're going deep into the list. You're saying this guy may be breakout. I like him, but who knows? But he wasn't a guy on draft boards early on, and so. But now, where the way he's playing, he's a guy that's on everybody's radar as far as hey, this guy's a guy that could be putting through a running back one type of week for you, which is a huge come up from where we were in the offseason. And you talk about the quarterback change, the Daniel Jones experiment ends in New York. That's probably a good thing for New York players, whether that's Malik Neighbors, whether that's, Tyrone Tracy, because now you have a guy like DeVito. We saw him in spurts last season look playable, look feasible. Yeah. He at least opens up the potential for something. It looks like he's got a little of that moxie, some meatballs. And stuff
I still like Daniel Jones over DeVito, to be honest, but that's a whole nother thing. I think DeVito, I'm not sold on him. I'm actually kind of surprised that they decided to do it now. I thought they'd just let him finish out the season because I don't know what they're really playing for. Like, it's for money, right? I mean,
yeah, I think it's very clear that they're moving off from Daniel Jones for a couple of reasons, but the most important one of that is the money. There's a $23 million guarantee on injury. I don't think they could risk it. Plus, I think you have better players behind him at the position, whether that's DeVito or even Drew Lock. I mean, who knows what will happen there. Yeah. I think we'll see DeVito to start because I think they got a little glimpse of him last season. We'll see what he looks like. But interesting to see what those players on the Giants roster look like from a fantasy perspective. Tracy, a guy that you wanted to also buy. Let's say, who are we saying goodbye to, though, at running back?
So talking about pass-catching backs and hard runners, Austin Eckler is another guy I think that I love Austin Eckler. He runs hard and he's a phenomenal catcher, out of the backfield. But he has been benefiting off of Brian Robinson Jr.'s injuries in terms of playing time and volume. And so when we say buy, we're not saying we're cutting them, right? But it's just like someone you can expect to kind of drop off or right.
Like, think about it like this.
Yeah.
You want someone that's on the up and up for when you buy someone. When you say goodbye to them, everyone says goodbye in different ways. Some people Irish exit. Some people give a handshake. Some people sit and linger and talk. Yeah. There's different ways to mean everything.
Okay.
In your perspective, someone we're saying goodbye to from the starting lineup, someone that you just aren't leaning on the same way, whether that's
so that would be Eckler. Yeah, and I would sell him if I could as a starting RB value because he has had a string of good, like really good games. But yeah, he's someone who's going to take probably a back seat to Brian Robinson Jr. now that he's back. and be used in a little bit more situational roles. So definitely Austin Eckler is a good buy.
Yeah, that's right. We wave goodbye to you, Austin Eckler. Fun guy, loves fantasy, but we're saying goodbye in 2024 for now. Let's move to the wide receiver position and talk to us. Who is a buy fantasy? And remember, guys, if you're watching this, you're listening. Joshua is giving great information, but of course, we know the trade deadlines are probably either here, they've gone. It may just be stuff where you're looking at your own roster saying, this is the guy I no longer want to start, or this is the guy I want to elevate to the starting roster because he's on my bench. So it's a good way to look at it, not necessarily always having to trade for these players we know it's late in the season. Wide receiver wise, talk to us.
All right. So I got on staying with the Broncos, as good as Bo Nix has looked, I'm going to go with Courtland Sutton as a buy. Another 7 receptions for 78 yards this week. And he has been a fantasy wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 in his last 5 games, which is very, very good, very, very stable, very, very consistent. And he's Bo Nix's favorite target. So he's getting the most targets on a weekly basis. And that's really the best kind of ingredients for someone you want to buy, someone who's getting steady targets and producing. And so Sutton has always been a guy who's been very underrated, undervalued. Even when Judy was on the squad, they were always like, is Judy the guy or Sutton the guy? And I like that. I like seeing Sutton getting targeted the most because, people kind of wanted to pigeonhole him a little bit into some deep play ball kind of guy, but he's really good receiver.
Yeah, he really is. It's funny that you mentioned, I'm just looking at his stats here for a second and it immediately thought to myself, this is so fantasy, specific. When you think about Courtland Sutton, the perfect example of a player that makes you feel like fantasy, right? Because as you've mentioned, he's a guy that you want to buy. He's a guy you want to put in your lineup, and you've been putting him in your lineup, getting results. We saw on Sunday against Atlanta, 7 for 8 on the targets. He catches 7. He's got 78 yards. Last week, he goes for 70 yards and a touchdown and 6 catches. The 2 weeks before that, he had over 100 yards receiving on 7, 8 receptions each time.
Yeah.
And then you look back and you go, hey, I was starting him earlier this season, and I started him on Thursday night. And he got me 0 targets, 0 catches. It was like, what was he wasn't inactive, he was active. And yet now you're telling me this is the guy, but you're right. This is a guy that's been awesome the last month. Yeah. And he has been in a guy that you would want in your lineup. So, but that's fantasy, right? Sometimes the thing about fantasy that helps you win the most is patience. Yeah. It's not going to happen for you every week. And so I love what you talk about with Sutton, especially with that Denver offense getting it rolling. 38 points on Sunday against Atlanta. Bo Nix doing his thing, and Courtland Sutton, a professional wide receiver in the NFL, a guy that you can put in your lineup for fantasy perspective and win. So I like that call. Let's say who we want to say goodbye to. Someone that's doing Courtland Sutton from Thursday Night Football. Where he's showing up, but he's not showing up. Tell us who we're saying goodbye to.
So I had told people to buy low on this player. He happens to be on the Dolphins. Jalen Waddle. He needs to waddle his way, onto the bench because he's had opportunities now after Tua's been back with actually pretty good matchups where he should have been able to perform. But he's just not doing it. I look back on his stats, and in this season, he's only had 1 fantasy wide receiver 2 game the whole year. Every other game this year, he's been way out of the wide receiver 2 range. That means he's outside of the top 24 for literally the whole season, except for 1 game. And that is just ridiculous, isn't it? Like Jalen Waddle, he's supposed to be, the wide receiver 2, but he's not playing like any kind of wide receiver right now.
Yeah, he's not even remotely like wide receiver 2. On Sunday, Jalen Waddle had less targets for the Miami Dolphins than Odell Beckham Jr. Odell Beckham Jr. had more targets than Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
What happened to the Waddle? All the fun that we was having in Miami before this season, because, man, he has been a disappearing act for the Dolphins. As I said, not only did he have less targets, and he had 3 targets on Sunday, then he had less targets than Odell Beckham Jr. He had the same amount of targets as Julian Hill. Did you even know Julian Hill was a tight end on Miami? I know you did, but most people didn't, all right? And then, you mentioned Johnny Smith. That's too easy. Johnny Smith had 8 targets, 6 catches for 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns, yeah.
Johnny Smith had as many touchdowns as Jalen Waddle had catches on Sunday.
Yeah, that's crazy.
All right.
Yeah.
Stop here. Malik Washington had 3 catches.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it crazy? So if anyone's watching and they're more dynasty oriented, it doesn't mean go sell Waddle for a third right now. It doesn't mean, I think even for a second I wouldn't sell because I still believe in the talent. But man, just if you're in redraft this season, like it's not even worth like whatever upside you think he might have. It's not even worth putting him into the lineup for that at this point. Like if it's not Tyreek, if it's not Jonnu Smith. Or Devon Achane, like you're probably not going to play any of the skill positions. Yeah.
Absolutely right. All right. I got a question before we let you out of here after this. I want to do tight end, but it's going to bring us back to Waddle and some of the other Alabama wide receivers in the NFL, but we'll get there after this. Let's talk tight end. Who's someone that we're buying at the tight end position, which we know tight end has been interesting in 2024. We've got a rookie leading the crop of Brock Bowers. We have the rookie from last season and Sam Laporta sort of disappearing, either not playing, hurt, or just not getting you points. We got stars like Mark Andrews, disappears, reappears, gone. It's just a complete crapshoot across the board at tight end. So who is the tight end in fantasy that down the stretch we want to buy?
So we just talked about him, but I want to buy Jonnu Smith. He's someone that I really invested in a lot of fantasy leagues. Hadn't really done much. Showed up in Atlanta where he was like outplaying Kyle Pitts. And then now he's on Miami, and everyone said, well, they don't really use tight ends there. So, I doubt he's going to get much love but he actually has, I think I saw a stat where he's been out targeting even just like Tyreek Hill, over the past several weeks and out producing him, including this game from this week. And so if someone thinks it's just like maybe a fad or something that's going to pass, I would just jump on Jonnu Smith. And so he's someone that you got to plug into your lineup. If you have him or if he's available on the waiver wire for whatever reason, you need to pick him up and consider starting him.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is a guy that you might be able to find in your waiver wire. Depending on your league, he may be there, and he's going to be a huge waiver pickup at this point, obviously, after 2 touchdowns on Sunday. But he's a guy that this isn't a fad. This is a guy that's been in the offense and really breaking out under Mike McDaniel this season, and obviously replacing some of the past target hogs like Jalen Waddle. It's clear that Jonnu Smith is either 1B to Tyreek Hill's 1A, at least from the sort of receiver position. But Jonnu Smith pacing that Miami Dolphins sort of resurgence over the last few weeks, and he was electric on Sunday with 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Let's flip it. There's a tight end out there, and you're saying, look, man, it was a good time while it lasted, but we got to let you go. We're saying goodbye. Who are we waving goodbye to?
We're saying goodbye to the cheesy Tucker Kraft. I know this might feel a little bit reactionary because he's had solid games, but against Chicago, like this week, literally I had as many fantasy points as him just watching.
Me too. Together.
Yeah, look at that. See, we're better than Tucker Kraft,
Yeah, I would have liked my name in the starting lineup.
But that's the thing. I watched the game. I'm a Chicago Bears guy, and so I watched the game, and Love didn't really seem to look his way. And Kraft was never. So main thing is this. There's enough talent in the tight end position right now where you don't have to hold on to Tucker Kraft as if he's going to be a league winner. It's easy to say bye to Tucker Kraft when you can pick up and stream different tight ends based on matchups on a given week, especially in your standard ESPN and Yahoo leagues. So that's what I would do. If I have Tucker Kraft and I've been holding on to him like he's going to be like your main tight end for the rest of the season, you can easily say bye to him every week. You can choose, like you can look at different defensive matchups and play the streamers, at tight end. And I think that you'd be better off actually to do that.
Yeah, no, this is a guy, Tucker Kraft, that has had some really strong weeks and came out of nowhere to ascend to that tight end position and helped you win some weeks this season.
Yep.
But I've been concerned about him over the last month because you look at the numbers, he doesn't get targeted enough, and he was getting in the end zone with touchdowns that was saving you. But from a target standpoint, it was clear that there was potential for a sort of week like this where he gets nothing, where he gets just as much as us as fantasy players. So I understand that that's a guy that we could say goodbye to. He might have another week, but it's just tough to it's tough when you're relying on just touchdowns because it's such a crapshoot. So
can I just add to that? I think you're saying something that's very important in fantasy football. Don't just look at the stat sheet. one of the most important things to look for is volume, target volume. And so you want to
100%.
get guys who are consistently getting targets on their team. That's why, honestly, guys like, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, like he had another big touchdown bomb, and, people who played him, they might have been rewarded by that. But guys like him who get like 2 to 3 targets a game, eventually it's not going to work out. Like those are boom games. They're boom or bust type players when they're only getting a couple, like, 2 to 3 targets a game. So that's just something to add on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point because at the end of the day, volume equals opportunity.
Yeah.
Opportunity equals potential to win. So it's a great point that you reiterated. All right, that is the fantasy buys and fantasy goodbyes for week 11 with my guy, Joshua Cho. JB Cho knows. And before we get you out of here, though, I said I had a question. It got me thinking. We talk about the Alabama wide receivers. We mentioned Jalen Waddle, but there's a number of them in the NFL. If you were in a draft right now, fantasy-wise, and you got to take your top Alabama wide receiver in the NFL today for fantasy for the rest of the season, what guy would you take? For anyone that's watching, I'll give you a second to sort of think through it. If you're trying to understand, what are the Alabama receivers in the NFL? It's an interesting list. Here's the names. We've got Amari Cooper. We've got Jerry Jeudy, who was electric on Sunday. We got Jamison Williams, John Mechie, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, and Calvin Ridley. There's some names, but they're all in the tier. So you get one wide receiver from Alabama fantasy-wise. Who are you taking?
Man, this is a fun question. You know what I'm going to say, and maybe this might surprise people, but I think I would roll with Amari Cooper. And maybe I should have had him as a buy because he's been dealing with a wrist injury, and he's trying to get comfortable playing with like a cast on it and catching the ball. But he's connected to Josh Allen, high-powered offense, and he hasn't really gotten the chance yet, I think, to be a part of the offense in the way that I know that they're going to find a way to use him. And so he might be the guy that I think can just pop off and really help your team win down the stretch. But it is a little bit risky because when you're dealing with injury, it can definitely affect things so much. But if it wasn't Amari Cooper, I still believe in Devonta Smith, the Slim Reaper. Like I think his talent to me is elite as a wide receiver. But man, he's been definitely a little bit disappointing, the past few weeks, right?
But here's one game. Look, I love your analysis, but when I say we get one, we're not getting multiple. I'm not giving you Devontae and Amari Cooper.
Hey, come on, man! I want my cake and I want to eat it too. But let's roll with Amari then. I'm gonna go with Amari Cooper.
We're rolling with Amari, and I like you.
Roll. Right?
We've seen Amari Cooper put in some of the best fantasy games from a wide receiver in the history of fantasy football. So we know he has that potential. Yeah. He had a great catch on Sunday against the Chiefs. He's been on the injury list, so it's been questionable on how healthy he is. Hopefully he gets healthy down the stretch run, but I like the Amari Cooper as the guy from Alabama in the NFL you go with. This has been a lot of fun. Before we get you out of here, I do want to give you an opportunity to either tell us any final things you're thinking from fantasy-wise week 11, but also then tell us where everyone could follow you and find more of your fantastic content.
Yeah. I'm on X at JB Cho Knows, and I do this for fun, and it's a really like a passion hobby of mine, and I love talking ball and talking fantasy football. But most of all, I love connecting with people and helping them win in their leagues, but also getting to know people. It's been awesome just communicating with people and meeting new people, and connecting on something that we all enjoy doing together. So if you ever have any questions, it could be trades if you're still doing trades in your leagues. It could be dynasty or redraft. And I'll do my best to help. I have a hashtag. You see it down below, Ask JBC. If you use that hashtag, I'll search that, and then I'll try to answer, all the questions that are out there using that hashtag. And it doesn't have to be only fantasy football. I can also try to answer other questions if you have any. But yeah, other than that, I have weekly posts or daily posts. So just look out. They usually drop around 9 a.m. in the morning, and then maybe another post in the late afternoon. But it's been a lot of fun putting out content for everyone and seeing the response.
Yeah, look, you've been putting out content for a while now, for
Yeah.
seasons. I've been following along and following and reading a lot of the stuff regularly. It keeps me up to date, helps me think through my thoughts and see what you're lined up on. As I said, your top takeaways each week come out Monday morning. This morning's post, just as good as all of them. I mean, massively followed, got lots of good follow questions and comments, and you really break down the NFL week by week, not just on Mondays, but throughout the week with start and sits,
Yeah.
pickups, waivers, trades.
Yeah.
As you said, you've got your hashtag AskJBC, and you love to see it. This has been a lot of fun having you. I hope you'll come back. Love to have you
No,
as we
thank you
get
so
towards the
much for
playoff
having
run.
me. No, really appreciate
Yeah,
you having me on. And I know you're doing your thing all the time and on your grind. So I respect you, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Appreciate you having me.
absolutely. What a pleasure. This is week 11 with JB Chonos at JBC. As he said, if you have any questions, you can do that on X. Make sure you're following him. We'll see you next time, Josh. Thanks so much for joining us.
Bye.
All right, so guys, another week is in the books as far as Sunday football. TMA football, hashtag it TMA football. If you have questions, comments, yeah, you want to get in touch, make sure you're following our guests. They are the best in the business. I only like to bring on people that I have tracked with, followed along, and interacted with, that are doing good content consistently. And that starts with the NFL and Terrell Bush 05 TV is on Pro Football Post. So you can follow them, see all the good stuff they're doing there. And of course, from a fantasy perspective, no one is doing more than my guy, JB Cho knows. Follow him on X, and of course, interact with his post if you want to get those answers to the questions that you have. Well, we went through the walk of shame, the texting who we like. We're talking about the fantasy buys and goodbyes for week 11. It was another fun week, maybe the best week of the NFL season in 2024, which was week 11. Started with a bang on Thursday night football between Philadelphia and Washington. It's going to end tonight on Monday night football, but Sunday night football was a bang. We had the big game between Buffalo and Kansas City. And man, if every week of football could be like this one, we'd be in for a treat. I was in for a treat today with you guys in another TMA football. The morning after football is on X. It is on YouTube and in Instagram live. Make sure you're following across the different platforms. Turn on notifications, hit the subscribe button, help support the growth of not only myself, but the guests that come on, so we can continue to deliver in exciting information, good content, and hopefully one day award-winning pieces of nuggets from real and fantasy football for you to win. It's been a pleasure to do it with you. Another week's in the book. We're back for week 12. We're going to feast because it is a trick or treat feasting type of Thanksgiving week. Next week, we'll be back Monday, week 12, November 25th. Turn your notifications on so you don't miss it. Appreciate everyone that listened, followed, and joined us. This one was a doozy. We'll see you for week 12. And by the way, with Kansas City's loss, that means there's no more undefeated teams. The undefeated Miami Dolphins from 1972 continue, and that means the Dolphins, while they're not doing so well in 2024, they do remain the only franchise in the NFL to go undefeated throughout the season and win a championship. And for that, I can celebrate another win for the Dolphins. Have a good one. We'll see you in week 12.